It's been 12 years since we've had a new mayor, so we felt it was important to arrange for you to get to know the candidates better and understand their capabilities and their qualifications. Tonight's forum started with an invitation 4 weeks ago to all candidates for mayor to participate in this event. So the candidates that are here tonight, as I call your name, please take your position on the forum. Participating this evening are Rick Guzman. Rick has been the Assistant Chief of Staff for the mayor for some 6 years. Alderman Mike Seville. Mike has been an alderman for the 6th Ward on the City Council for 32 years. Alderman at Large, Richard Irvin. Richard has been an alderman on Aurora City Council as alderman at Large for 12 years. Also running is State Representative Linda Chapalavia. Linda has been a state representative for 12 years. So they'll all tell you more in just a few minutes with their opening statements. So at this time, let me introduce your forum moderator. I didn't think it was right that I handle that, and so we got somebody that is well respected in the community. This is Kent Duncan. Kent Duncan is the longtime chair of the board of the Indian Prairie Education Foundation. The foundation has been a steady supporter of School District 204, providing somewhere approaching $4 million in support generated through business and individual donations from the community. This is a very worthwhile organization providing additional non-tax-based support to further the education of our children. Thank you for all the work that you do. Kent, the forum is yours.
Thank you, Alderman Mervine. I'm going to go off script a little bit because this is something I do all the time. I also want to thank, and I know Alderman Mervine wanted to do this, but I asked him if I could as a resident. I want to thank the Park District and the City of Aurora Law Enforcement Group for not only for being here tonight, but for everything you do for this community. So thank you very much. I also want to welcome you to this mayoral forum. Alderman Mervine has kind of set the stage, so let's just begin. First of all, for the audience, let's be respectful tonight and quiet during the forum so that everybody can hear the questions and the answers. We have included written questions from audience members and have selected a range of questions covering topics important for our city. We will continue to meet the candidates tonight immediately following the forum, so should be no unnecessary talk as we progress. For the candidates, you will each be given the same opportunity to address the voters here tonight using the following format. There will be a 2-minute opening statement by each candidate. There will be between 4 to 6 questions tonight. Each candidate will be given 3 minutes to answer the same question. We will rotate which candidate is first to answer each question in the order of your position. Now, there will be no additional time allowed for any kind of rebuttal. After the question and answer session is complete, then each candidate will be given 2 minutes to provide a closing statement at the end. You will be shown a yellow card when there are 30 seconds remaining in your time, and a red card when your time is up. The timekeeper will stand up if you have not concluded your remarks after 10 seconds. Our timekeeper tonight is a longtime resident of Aurora, Illinois, Mr. Scott House. So, Scott, thanks for doing this tonight. He's also a very large gentleman. So if we could, we will start with opening statements. Again, you'll have 2 minutes from the moment you start. Mr. Guzman.
Well, good evening, everybody. Thank you for coming out here. I want to thank Alderman Mervine and Kent Duncan for helping to put this together, as well as everyone else involved, but most of all to all of you for this incredible turnout, showing how interested we are in the next story, the next chapter of our great city. I'm running for mayor because I believe Aurora is at a critical crossroads, but I'm also running for mayor because I've absolutely loved working in the mayor's office these past 5+ years, being able to see our city take some huge steps forward, being able to participate in and actually lead, in some cases, some of our highest impact projects. I think that our next mayor needs to be able to bring 3 important things to the office, and one of those things is experience. And in that regard, I do have some unique qualifications. I've been in the mayor's office for over 5 years. I've worked very closely with Mayor Tom Weiser and now Mayor Bob O'Connor. I understand that this is a 6 and sometimes 7 day a week job. And so I've been there for a little over 2,000 days, or around 2,000 days, learning, preparing, and gaining some experience that no other candidate will be able to bring to this office. The second thing I think is that a new mayor will need to be able to bring is a knack for innovation. And I think particularly now as we're seeing shrinking resources and added pressures on our budget from Springfield. And here again is an area where I've got some unique qualifications. The nonprofit that my wife and I founded, Emmanuel House, last year was recognized internationally as one of the 100 most innovative organizations of 2016. Not so much for what we do, I believe, but for how we do it, collaboratively, inclusively, by including the people who we're trying to help become first-time homeowners in Aurora. And the third and final thing is a proven ability to bring people together to get results, because results matter. Our record matters. And my commitment to you is that my administration will be defined by the inclusivity and the collaboration that will be needed to get Aurora to the next level.
Okay, thank you. Alderman Urban.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Alderman Mervine and Mr. Duncan for putting this on, and thank all of you for spending your evening to hear what we have to say about moving Aurora forward. You know, I'm sure you have a whole lot better things to do than come hear politicians talk. So, you know, I want to make this worth your while. You know, I think we all up here love Aurora. I don't think any of us would put ourselves through the rigors of running for office if we didn't love our city. But I don't think that in of itself is enough. It's not enough to say that I've worked in the mayor's office. You know, that makes you a great employee, but that doesn't make you a leader. And that's what we need, leadership. It's not enough to say that you've got 30 years of experience as an alderman. That makes you committed to the city of Aurora, absolutely. But that does not make you a leader. What makes you a leader is proven ability to lead. I've led in the military during combat in the Gulf War. I've led as a community-based prosecutor working with the police officers in Aurora to stop crime and bring it to the low levels that we see today. But we've got a lot more work to do. I've led as a business owner and lawyer with a business right downtown Aurora with employees and other lawyers that work for me. I've led as a chairman of a multi-million-dollar financial institution, the Fox Valley Credit Union, where when I became the chairman, it had a low bond rating. Now, once I've been there for 2 years, we have a much higher bond rating, and we're in a better position. These are the types of leadership qualities that we need for the city of Aurora. This is a very serious job. We have over $400 million budget. We have 200,000 citizens. We've got 3,000 employees. This is the kind of leadership that we need. And as alderman at large, I've been working right next to the mayor for the last 10 years, making sure that we build the foundation that we see today. Now it's time for the next mayor of Aurora, and hopefully that'll be me, to build on that foundation, build on that infrastructure, and take Aurora to the next level.
Very good. Alderman Seville.
Thank you. Again, thank you, Rick and Kent, for helping with this forum, and thank all of you for coming out this evening to get to know us and to learn a little bit about where we stand as candidates. My name is Mike Seville, and I'm running to be your next mayor. I'm a 9-term alderman in the city of Aurora, having served on the 6th Ward for the past 32 years. The economy, schools, and public safety. That's why I'm running to be your next mayor. I was born and raised in Aurora, lived in Aurora on the west side all my life, went to School District 129 schools and graduated. Went away to college, received a degree from the University of Illinois in Chicago, naturally, and BA degree in political science. And in 1980, I was appointed by Mayor Jack Hill to be on the Planning Commission. In 1985, I was appointed by Mayor Dave Pierce to be alderman of the 6th Ward. I've been involved in planning. Right now, I'm chair of the Planning Development Committee for over 36 years. So chances are the neighborhoods that you live in, I voted on. So I hope you like your neighborhoods. I hope you like your homes. I've also served on the Government Operations Committee, the Building Grounds and Infrastructure Committee, and also I've served 18 years on the Finance Committee, which means I went over the budget line by line for 18 years as a member of that Finance Committee, which also means I voted for 32 balanced budgets in 32 years. The City of Aurora has a AA bond rating because of our fiscal responsiveness, not only to our constituents, but also as well in terms of managing our money and our budget. That's an impeccable record. We have a AA bond rating, and we are very aggressive at the same time in solving policy. Now, I invite you to go to my website, MikeSevilleForMayor.com, which is kind of a catchy title, right? And look at my platform, and look at the things that I've done. Things that I've done is by year. Resolutions, ordinances, and policies. Please go to that. Maybe I can talk more about that later. My time is up, so thank you.
Very good, thank you. We'll now go to the question portion of the evening. Again, I will ask the question, and then I'll call on one of you to give us an answer, and you'll have 3 minutes from that point to do so. We'll start out with Alderman Mervine. We rely on the city to perform a variety of services for us: street repair, snow plowing, street lights, enforcing neighborhood standards, police and fire, trash and recycling, to name just a few. Providing a full suite of these services can be difficult if funding becomes tighter. The state has been making advances to eliminate our city portion of the state collected revenues and controlling property taxes from Springfield. How do you propose to continue the services we need if outside funding sources dry up?
First of all, I absolutely disagree with Springfield taking any additional dollars from the city of Aurora. These dollars are much needed and well used as we continually balance our budget, no matter how thin this budget is. There's two ways for us to continue the services that we see today, that we appreciate of citizens of Aurora. Either we raise taxes, which no one wants to hear. I don't want my taxes raised. Or we bring in more revenue streams. The way we bring in more revenue streams is through economic development. Now, what I'd like to do as the next mayor of Aurora is I'd like to reinstate our Economic Development Commission. We currently don't have a commission. What we do is Invest Aurora, which is an outside agency, a private agency, but we don't have an internal Economic Development Commission. We have to reinstate that and focus on what I think is important to grow our economy here in Aurora. We have to sell ourselves. We have to sell our attributes and our assets, both natural assets and man-made assets. We have to focus on this river that runs through our city. We're a river city. We've turned our backs in the last 4 decades away from that river. Now we've got to focus on getting back to it. If every time you turn on the television, you hear that Chicago's raising its taxes, those people are going to have to go somewhere. We need to attract more people downtown Aurora and rebuild our downtown. We need to attract more business into the city by capitalizing on our assets and making Aurora an attractive place. And once they call it rooftops and critical mass. Once we have more rooftops or more mass, then that's when we start to attract the businesses, the grocery stores downtown, the shops downtown. They're not going to come. Any business is in business to make money. They're not going to come downtown unless they have a reason to. There's got to be a mass of people living in our downtown. And what I'd like to do is focus on economic development in each ward. Oftentimes you hear candidates talk about or politicians talk about the downtown. I think each ward should have its own economic development plan. 9th Ward, 10th Ward, from 1st all the way to the 10th. Every ward has to have its individual economic plan. So when you have circumstances like on the west side where Walmart leaves town or Hobby Lobby or Cub Foods, we have a plan where we can replace that immediately. Also, bringing in more revenue streams means that we have to expand the businesses we have in Aurora. It doesn't make sense to attract 6 new businesses only to lose 5. We have to attract new businesses that complement the business that we have here in Aurora. And again, the way we do that is economic development and education. We know people moving out of a city based on the success of education in school districts. We have to partnership with our school districts, and that's another thing I'd like to do, create an education commission. So economic development and education, and keep a check on crime.
Okay. Alderman Seville.
Yes. The City of Aurora is a $375 million municipal corporation. When the Great Recession occurred in 2007 and 2008, we had to make the conscious effort to try to deliver the same services that you as constituents always expected, while at the same time living within our means. So we constantly chose not to raise people's property taxes. What we did choose is to cut the budget. We cut the budget. We actually lowered the tax levy. We had to lay off 186 people. We instituted furlough days, and we lived within our means. I think that's what people expect from their government. Very conservative fiscal policies, and yet being aggressive with policy and meeting the day-to-day needs of what you expect for us in our city. Many of the services that you mentioned, we do. There is a challenge with the state of Illinois. However, they can't cut our sales tax revenue because that's in the state constitution adopted in 1970. So regardless of what they say, they're going to have to change the constitution to do that. They cannot without the residents of Illinois' approval. So what do? Well, we can be very aggressive in terms of economic development, which I have as an alderman. I have voted for the first tax increment financing districts going back to 1985 and 1986. In fact, the 1986 TIF, which is where the premium outlet mall is, has a 33% increase in revenue, the highest TIF in the state of Illinois. I voted on that when I was on the finance committee back then. We need to make sure all of our TIF districts succeed. In fact, my policy is from day one is to begin the TIF districts over. I understand we can do that per state statute, setting the level of the increment, and that way when assessed valuations are increased with the development, we can use that economic increment for more development in our city. I've also am currently chairman of the Riverwalk Commission. I had the dream of 1986 is to meld recreational opportunities in our downtown, connect the bike trails that was only planned at that point in time, not actually built, with economic development to use that as a tool. So we formulated design guidelines for a redevelopment and development within our downtown, and what we've seen is the benefit of that with regard to what's occurring in our downtown. Not only the physical look of our downtown, but also economic development. The physical look meaning the streetscape. We have the streetscape, which is the historic streetlights, the bollards, the trash receptacles, the bicycle racks, the pavers. Everything that you see now today didn't exist before 1986. I had the vision to turn around the downtown, and our Riverwalk Commission has implemented these design guidelines, unanimously approved by the City Council over the years. And now we're seeing the fruits of our labor because now we've seen Mr. Karadimas from Milwaukee come and develop the 3 buildings of Leland Hotel, Graham Building, and the Mayan Building. And so I will continue to be aggressive as your mayor.
Thank you. Mr. Guzman.
Well, here again, with respect to threatened losses of state revenue, I think here is an important example of where we need to draw a contrast between how things have been done in Aurora and how things have been done in Springfield. In Aurora, as has been mentioned, not only were tough decisions made by Mayor Wisner and the City Council to walk back or to cut the size of city government, but they actually, after years and years and years of just sort of increasing the tax levy to go along with growth, they put a stop to that in about 2008, 2009, and actually walked the property tax levy backward to 2005 levels. And that was an important step. That was living within your means is how that was described. But we've continued to do that, and we've continued to be fiscally responsible. Meanwhile, Springfield has proposed various solutions that would actually penalize those communities like Aurora that have been fiscally responsible by potentially freezing those levies at 10-year-old levels by taking the constitutional deals that were made in terms of looking at the legislative distribution fund that guarantees a certain amount of funding for each of our residents here, and to cut back on that. And so I think Springfield has just become very adept at passing the buck to local property taxpayers. So what we need to do is we need to be able to be creative in how we find new revenue streams. And I think for years, Aurora was very reactive in the boom years prior to the recession in terms of how we took on economic development. We need to be proactive. One of the things that I've proposed is to look at our strategic retail corridors and to actually have separate strategic plans, in some cases a new master plan using regional expertise. And similar to how I started my campaign with a listening tour, we would want to actually include the businesses that are there, to include the residents who are surround that, to be able to have a voice in what the future would look like, to see what would people patronize. I've also proposed actually permanently putting in place these geographic forums that would talk with residents and businesses about how we can best put in place new businesses. And I think we need to also continue the creative ways that we've been able to come up partnering with Invest Aurora to be able to do things like creating a revolving loan fund, partnering with banks, partnering with private foundations, and being able to finance difficult to finance projects that then allow these buildings to be able to be brought to a place where they can be developed and ultimately refinanced by the private sector.
Very good, thank you. Our second question for the evening. As the second largest city in Illinois, we have challenges with crime and law enforcement. While the city is a lot safer than 15 years ago, a continual reduction in crime, both violent crime and lesser vandalism, is important to our city and individual neighborhoods, no matter what part of the city you reside. It is a quality of life issue. What do you propose to improve and/or build on any current programs, and do you have any new ideas to address public safety? Alderman Seville.
Thank you. Let me begin by saying that in working with the community for the last 32 years, people call me on a regular basis and tell me their challenges. And when I sit down with them, I can work with them in the city in forming cooperative relationships through all the taxing bodies to solve their concerns, especially with regard to crime and safety. In fact, I co-sponsored the crime-free housing ordinance that passed unanimously in City Council in October 2008. If you looked at the crime statistics since then, which really means that it made landlords more responsible and required them to act responsible with penalty section in there, you've seen the crime fall precipitously. I think it's still important today as it was then. If you saw in the paper today, crime last year has fallen 6.1%, but I think we can always do better. So I think it's important to form cooperative relationships. I work very well with neighborhood groups. We need to continue to strengthen our neighborhood groups throughout the city, but we also need to concentrate on economic development because a strong economic base means jobs for people that need it in our community, especially our young people, and making sure that they are mentored and have job training programs available, which I will help expand in our community as well. So I think if you take all this together and working on the economic development, working with our police officers, and what we are doing right now is we're putting on more police officers on the street because we are taking those police officers that are behind the desk, we are civilianizing the police force and getting them back on the street. I will continue to do that and advocate that as mayor. So I think it's a community-wide effort, and I think I've shown the leadership capabilities as alderman, and I will continue to do that as mayor.
Just a reminder, there is some water behind your chair.
Sorry about that. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Guzman.
You know, Aurora has come a long way in terms of crime. Recently ran across a clip from a 1996 Inside edition that was highlighting Aurora as having one of the highest homicide rates in the nation. Fast forward 20 years from now, or 20 years from that point, 1996 to 2016, and we have seen dramatic reductions in that area. And in fact, we were recently highlighted as one of the seventh safest, or the seventh best family-friendly city out of the 150 largest cities in the nation. And what was interesting about that was that when you looked at all the different factors they examined, Aurora was the fifth safest out of the 150 largest cities in the nation. So that's a dramatic transformation in just 20 years. But we need to continue that. And I think that the goal that I have is to make Aurora the safest big city that we have in our nation. And I think that there are a number of ways that we can do that. And we have to remember how we got this far. It was through collaboration. It was by working with neighborhood groups, with community groups. It was by working and partnering with mentoring organizations. It was by a variety of strategies. It was also by partnering with and working closely with our federal law enforcement agencies that gave us new tools to be able to fight crime. And so we need to learn from the past and understand how it is that we got this far in such a short amount of time so that we can continue that great story. We need to look at things like expanding and doing even more of our community-oriented policing. We've got a great community-oriented policing unit, and I think the practices have been expanding throughout the entire police department. I think that is what got us to this point. Community-oriented policing throughout the entire, as a philosophy, throughout the entire police department is what helped us make such tremendous strides in the first place. And we need to continue to do that. And one of the ways to do that is by giving our police more community groups to be able to partner with. And so before Chief Seaman was Chief Seaman, when she was the commander, Mayor Weisner asked me to work with her and with our community services chief to put together a neighborhood support program that's helped to increase the number of neighborhood groups, particularly in strategic areas where it's important for our police to be able to have relationships with those in the community as a source of information and as a source of trust. I think that we, excuse me, I think that we need to also work on figuring out ways, and we have this year in our budget, a way to get more police officers on the street by civilianizing certain positions and being able to that way more affordably get police officers on the street in the critical areas where they're needed so that they can continue to do the wonderful job that they have.
Alderman Irvin.
I think I'm in a unique position to be able to talk specifically about crime. I think of all the folks that sit up here in front of you today, I'm the only one that's actually directly affected crime in Aurora. When I was a prosecutor, assistant state's attorney, I was assigned to what's called the community-based prosecutor unit in Aurora. Matter of fact, it was the first time we had ever had one of those. So I created this unit, and this unit was created to work with the police department to create community organizations and collaborate with federal organizations, state organizations, policing organizations, state policing organizations, county policing organizations, as well as local. And what we did was we came together and we created programs to stop crime at its root level. As a matter of fact, one of the programs that we worked on was we created what's called the Weed and Seed program, where we were able to ourselves get buy-in from the community, federal, state, and local, to bring these millions of federal dollars in to help us to stop crime. Matter of fact, there's a particular community in Aurora that was plagued with crime. It was on the Aurora's east side, where if you go out there, there were things that happened all from murder all the way down to domestic batteries. And this was open and notorious. Myself and the police went out there to do an assessment before we determined we were going to try to stop crime out there, and you saw people selling drugs right in front of the police officers, almost as though they didn't care. The people that lived in that community lived in fear from the terrorism of these gangbangers and drug dealers. Within less than a year, we turned that around. Where there was no crime out there, we created community organizations. So once we got rid of the crime and the criminals out there, the citizens that lived out there created an organization to maintain their streets, to make sure that now that we have them back, they would never go back to the gangbangers and drug dealers again. This is the kind of thing that we need to do consistently around Aurora to make sure that we don't ever go back to what we used to be, the image and perception of a gang-banging, drug-dealing, drive-by shooting kind of town, where we had close to 30 murders in 1 year. The efforts that we instituted 15 years ago, now we see the result of it, where there's low crime in the city of Aurora now. But the problem is, if we don't keep crime in check, if we don't stay vigilant, it'll go back in a fraction of the time that it took for us to get where we are now. One of the things we have to do is we have to make sure we have a full police force. Right now, the police department is running about 10 to 11 officers low. That means these officers have to work overtime and struggle to make sure that they perform the jobs they normally perform, because now they've got to work 16 hours, 8 hours more than they normally work. We've got to make sure we have a full 911 operating staff. We're about 11 people down in the 911 operating staff. So if people call in, they're not going to be able to effectively get the assistance they need. It's being proactive instead of reactive. it's community-oriented policing, or problem-oriented policing is the overall arching umbrella. And under that, we focus on, community policing.
Very good. Question 3. Over 60% of our property tax bill goes to our schools, and another 20% of our tax bill goes to the city. This side of Aurora, the part of DuPage, Kendall, and Will counties, represents some 57% of the entire property tax contribution that goes to the city of Aurora. What would you do to control the city's property tax growth? Mr. Guzman.
Well, here again, I think that we need to work on things that we've begun to talk about here. We need to expand the property tax base. I think that's the biggest thing that the city can do to make sure that there are new revenues. We need to look at efficiencies and partnerships. I think we need to begin to look at some of the things that are being looked at in other areas about how we can, whether it's through strategic partnerships or actual consolidations, so that we can have the ability to continue to provide high-quality services, but without having to continue to go back to that tax base. Once again, I think this is a useful area where it's important to actually look at the difference in terms of how responsible the city of Aurora has tried to be with property tax dollars versus the continued push and pressure that's being put on your local property tax bills by Springfield. And education is the biggest area. This is a problem that we've seen over and over again, where not only did the state go from one of the worst in terms of its contribution towards state education, but it went actually down to 2013. It was the worst in terms of its contribution towards education, putting more pressure on local property taxpayers than anywhere else. And so while State Representative Linda Chappell-Lavia was the chair of the House Education Committee, what we saw a solution, quote unquote solution, where what they did is they took a look at, or they came up with a plan called proration. And proration cost communities like Aurora disproportionately more money. So we looked at this, and I raised this at the last forum, and I said, we had over $50 million that Aurora was shorted, and the state representative said we should fact check that. So I did. I went back to it, and I included District 204 this time. $11.2 million was what was shorted to District 204 from 2012 to 2016, again, while the state representative was in a position of leadership. That puts more pressure onto you. That brings the total up well over $60 million of what was taken out permanently from what should have come to Aurora, while many of our surrounding communities saw almost in some cases, negligible impacts from the decision that they decided, from the decision they came up with. So we're not going to get more help from Springfield. We're not going to be able to rely on them. And so we have to come up with these creative solutions to find efficiencies in the way that we do things. And I think that there's a number of things that I've outlined in my platform online. But as I said, consolidation, expanding the tax base, being creative, and working together. Anything meaningful, anything big that the city's been able to accomplish, we've done it with partners. And that's the only way forward.
Alderman Mervine.
Now, this would be a great question to ask State Representative Chappell-Lavia, who is not present at this mayoral forum, even though she's running for mayor. This is a school funding formula issue. The school funding formula hasn't been changed in Springfield for the last 19 years. And Ms. Chappell-Lavia has been there for 14 years, and a long time part of it as the chairman of the Education Committee. Now, since her leadership, Illinois has dropped to almost last in the nation for education school funding fairness. So the reality is we can't rely on Springfield. Springfield is broken, so we have to rely on ourselves here locally to partnership. Now, there are a number of things that we can do. As I said, there's two ways that we're going to be able to support our services in our tax base. Raise taxes or bring in more economic development. We have to focus on bringing that economic development. You'll hear me talk about this because economic development and education are so closely tied together. We've got to bring in the economic development and diversify so we can spread the responsibility. Now, if something needs to happen where we need to do something for the school districts, whether it be school busing on the east side in District 131 or new schools or more teachers in 204, the reality is we've got to go to the homeowner and say, look, we need to raise your taxes. We've raised our taxes enough over the years. So the only way we're going to focus on and being able to be effective and not raise your taxes and scare you and push you out of the city altogether is if we do economic development. One of the things that I would like to create as mayor is what's called a taxing body consortium. Now, what that means is all right, in Illinois, we have a number of taxing bodies. We've got the school district, it's a separate taxing body. The city of Aurora, separate taxing body. The park district, separate taxing body. The water district, separate taxing body. Now, we got to bring all these taxing bodies together so we can work together and figure out how we can make sure that we don't duplicate these taxes and overtax our citizens. Now, it's never happened where we've had a consortium where all these taxing bodies come together and talk about exactly what we're doing to the citizen. Because when you see your tax bill, you got a chunk that goes here, a chunk that goes there, but you don't care about that. All you care about is your whole bill. So recognizing that, we've got to bring these taxing bodies together so we can talk about what we're all in conjunction doing to your bill. Until we can start talking about taxes and how to fairly and appropriately assess them and bring in economic development, taxes are going to keep skyrocketing, and you're going to have to determine whether or not you want to stay in Aurora. And I, for one, want you to stay in the city of Aurora.
Very good. Alderman Seville.
I want to be clear, I'm not in favor of raising anybody's property taxes. In fact, since 1980, as I mentioned earlier, I have voted literally upon billions and billions of dollars of economic development, which thereby has increased revenue. Yes, we need to live within our means, and I have done that, as I mentioned, with 32 balanced budgets in 32 years. But we need to grow the economy in order to provide more businesses locating in our community, more jobs, thereby increasing our economic tax base. I am a strong proponent of expanding the smart economy. We have laid almost 80 miles now of fiber optic network throughout our community. That is the most of any city in the state of Illinois. We need to pattern ourselves upon Chattanooga, Kansas City, and Santa Monica and become a gigabyte city. That is the reason why Aldi's recently moved to Corporate Boulevard in Aurora, because they want the capacity to download 100 gigabytes per second. After they get up and running, they will increase that, double that, to 200 gigabytes per second. What Kansas City has done, they used to be known as a town where their youth moved away. Now that they've become a gigabyte city, they are now known as a town that the youth is moving into. Not only are their youth staying in town, but people from all over the United States are coming there and establishing these startup businesses. We need to do that in Aurora. We need to do that on our economic corridors and especially within our downtown. We need to become a leader in the gigabyte revolution that's occurring before our very eyes. As was mentioned, we are 47th. We are 47th in our school funding formula out of 50 states. Now, how did we get that way? I always thought that we were a progressive city or a progressive state, right? We are not. Other states like Alabama and Arkansas and Louisiana, Mississippi, they're ahead of us, right? From day one, I will advocate for an immediate property tax relief. If I have to call, my administration has to call every mayor, if we have to call every school district board president, if we have to call every school district superintendent to advocate to change the school funding formula, that's what I'm going to do down at Springfield. We need that today. It's very regressive. It's not fair to our schools, and we need to do that today.
All right, thank you. Fourth question. The city of Aurora has improved on many fronts during the administration of former Mayor Wisner. Public safety has improved. The city's image has improved. Great strides have been made in development of the downtown area with commercial and residential development. In addition, we are a very diverse community with different wants and needs. With all those factors to consider, what plans would you have to create additional opportunities in the retail, entertainment, and commercial sectors to drive economic development. Alderman Mervine.
You know, people have asked me, over the last 10 years while I've been alderman, we've seen a new park go in. It's a beautiful park, the River's Edge Park. We've seen companies come to a city like Aldi and Service Tech, which is downtown Aurora, capitalizing on our economic development downtown and on our fiber optic network that we have running through our city. But they say, why is it when I go downtown, I don't feel like there's any change? I don't feel like anything's different. I still see companies that were old manufacturing buildings on the riverfront. I still see buildings that are empty, that have been dilapidated for decades. Why don't we see any real change? Well, what we've been doing over the last 10 years while I've been alderman is we've been creating a foundation. We've been creating an infrastructure, new roads, new bridges, new fiber optic network throughout the city, new expressway ramps that bring transportation and trucking in and out of the city. Now, it's taken a while for us to build this foundation, but now that we've built this infrastructure, what the next mayor of the city of Aurora has to do is build on this infrastructure. Now it's time to build and take us to the next level. Now, years ago, you heard me say that we needed to heal, strengthen, and build our city, heal our image and perception, and get us away from the crime-ridden city that we were known as. We need to heal, strengthen by having a strong foundation and infrastructure, and then we need to build. So now we have to take that next step to build, to attract businesses in by using our resources, both man-made and natural resources, to attract new revenue streams and have that critical mass of people, folks living downtown, and take advantage of this riverfront property. There's so much that we can do to grow Aurora. Now, I've got individuals that I'm working on a small business council right now. A gentleman that owns our biggest hotels in Aurora. He says, Richard, as soon as you become mayor, I believe in your vision. I want to build a big hotel right down Aurora with a conference center. I'm willing to invest more of my money and put skin in the game because I believe in you and your leadership. I have another gentleman who owns restaurants on both the east side and the west side. He owns the new Spartan House. He says, Richard, as soon as you become mayor, I support you. I want to build a new Italian restaurant right downtown. Even though I know we don't have the foot traffic downtown yet, I believe in where you want to take Aurora, and I'm willing to invest my money and put skin in the game right now. I have another gentleman who owns property on the riverfront who says, all right, I'm willing to move my trucking company, Geneva Construction, from the riverfront so we can use that piece of property for brownstones and condos. This is the type of leadership that we need. Not that I'm speculating that I'm going to do, things that I'm already doing as alderman at large for the city of Aurora.
Alderman Seville.
In my 32 years in the city council, I have been very aggressive in promoting economic development for our city. I mentioned to you the first tax increment financing districts that we formed and the percentage increase in the premium outlet malls. That is a tool that we can continue to use in our city. As I mentioned earlier, I believe we can reestablish our TIF districts, set the level of the increment, and as the development occurs, use that increment for more economic development down the road. I will do that from day one in a civil administration. Now, there are many tools that I've used over the years: property tax rebates, sales tax rebates, food and beverage tax rebates, in order to promote agreements with developers to come to our city. We have a very good economic development office in town called Invest Aurora. We fund it by over $635,000. They're doing a good job. I would continue to give them the ability to promote and form agreements in order to get development into the door into our city. I mentioned to you earlier about the smart economy. We need to make sure that we're fully utilizing our gigabyte capacity. Like Kansas City, they've adopted programs to bring in these young people to start up their businesses, and they're giving startup loans and grants and even free office space for people, and they received the benefit of, I believe this is true, of over 5,000 new jobs in Kansas City alone, advocating and utilizing this gigabyte smart economy. So I think we already have a network in place. We need to continue to hook onto that and grow if possible. Now, I mentioned to you earlier my work as the Riverwalk Commission chairman. since 1986. We have literally seen the face of the downtown change. And now, with the programs that we've offered, we're seeing economic development occur in conjunction with the successes that we've had. All the museums that we've had downtown, Fire Museum, SciTech Museum, Art and History Museum. We just rehabilitated the Grand Army Republic Museum. We have the streetscape that's changed. Literally, it looks better than it has since the 1970s. We've been constantly trying to reinvent the downtown since the Fox Valley Mall opened in 1974. And we are getting inquiries from developers up and down the region to come into our downtown. We need to be a strong advocate, as I mentioned earlier, on our economic development corridors, and just really continue to be aggressive as we have been in the past. And I will lead the way, as my history says. Go to my website again, look at what I've done. Past is prologue. Look at what I've done. That will determine for you how aggressive I'll be as your mayor.
Mr. Guzman.
Well, I think that there are a number of tools that we can use, but some of those tools we should probably use sparingly or only when needed. And so I would not be in favor of restarting all of our TIF districts. I would not be in favor of going to a TIF district approach in every instance. I think that that can freeze some of the resources we've talked about in other answers that are needed for our schools, that are needed to keep up with our services. I think we were able to bring Amazon in through a collaboration, once again, that looked at getting Amazon what they needed. They were looking at other sites. It wasn't just Aurora, of course. They chose Aurora because we could deliver to them, not just ourselves, but by working with the school district. By the way, we found out in this process there's a 7th school district that's, depending on where you live in Aurora, that you could actually, this is the Wheaton-Warrenville School District there, that we partnered with, and we partnered with the adjacent municipality, Warrenville, and we were able to get the incentive that was needed, not with a TIF district, but by saying, okay, here's what the city can rebate to you in the next few years. Here's what the school district can rebate to you. And in just a few years, we're able to give them the incentive that's needed so that then, just after 3 years, instead of 23 years with a TIF district, you're able to actually see all of that created increment from the 1.4 million square feet of building that they're going to be putting there, and the over 1,000 jobs that are going to be coming to that area. You see that going into the schools, going into what we've been talking about, how we need to expand the property tax base in order to be able to continue to deliver quality services. So I think that there are a variety of ways we can do that. When it comes to entertainment and culture, diversity, I mean, these are some of the things that Aurora is so comparatively rich in. When you look at a city like Aurora, I think we have the ability, and what we need to do is we need to market Aurora because we do have unique attributes that can bring people downtown, but it's not just the city. And Invest Aurora has been doing a great job bringing businesses, keeping businesses, seeing them grow within Aurora. But we need to be working together with our Chamber of Commerce, with our school districts, with our park districts, our townships, with our Convention and Visitors Bureau. There's so many different entities that have a piece of it, but we oftentimes don't sing off the same page of the hymn book. And what I think we need to do is create a collaborative marketing plan that can show people outside of Aurora what Aurora really is, which is a community that is rich in culture and arts and diversity, that can bring people downtown, that can market this to young professionals, that can use the river, our trails, our wonderful facilities like this one that the Park District provides, to be able to bring people who want a high quality of life, but also want access to transportation like the train, that also want good schools, and want a city that is dedicated to partnering with all of the people within it, all of the entities within it, to be able to bring about a great result for the people who live here and recognize Aurora for what it is, which is a great, diverse, beautiful city.
Thank you. Question 5. It's the day after the election, and you're now the mayor of the city of Aurora. What are the top 3 most important areas of focus for you as the new chief executive of the city? What will you change, and what will you keep the same? Alderman Seville.
Yes, my first day, as I mentioned earlier, I will be concentrating on economic development, schools, and public safety. I will begin forming the coalition with the school districts and the school superintendents, the boards of directors, and the mayors to try to get Springfield to change the school funding formula. That will be from day one. I will also meet with Chief Zeman and her staff to partner with the police department and working with the neighborhood groups to make sure that our public safety levels increase and our crime decreases. I'm a strong proponent of the crime-free housing ordinance, as you know, and co-sponsoring that, and I will look for ways to build upon the policies and programs that we have to make sure that everyone lives in a safe neighborhood. I represent a very diverse ward. I have 12% population African American. I have 51% population Hispanic, small percent of Asian, and the rest Caucasian. Everyone knows, the last 32 years as Alderman of the 6th Ward, everyone knows that they can call me and tell me about the concerns that they have, and I would be very aggressive in solving them. I would meet with staff in formulating programs and policies to be aggressive. As I mentioned, that I would indeed reset the TIF districts. And the reason why I say that is because when the TIF districts were formed, they were formed 11 and 12 years ago when the value was higher. So the reason why we're not getting much development is because there's no increment. So we have to lower the increment with today's assessed valuation to make sure when the economy grows, when we get development, that there's an increment to actually help development occur. So that's why I'm saying that we have to reset the TIF increment. I would also work with Aurora to make sure that we have the most aggressive policy possible to get new jobs and quality businesses in our community. Now, we need to also work with planning staff to update some of our quality standards that we have for development. Someone told me recently, a staff person, that some of those standards date back to 1957. So I would make sure that we update our zoning ordinance to make sure that we have the type of quality development that we all expect. Now, the reason why the development that has occurred in DuPage, Kendall, and Will County is because we did a good job of having quality development. We need to make sure that our economic corridors have the same quality development that we saw in development in the far east side. So I will meet with all of my staff, first off, to find out what their thinking is, but also in terms of what I'm hearing from you on the campaign trail to implement from day one. Thank you.
Mr. Guzman.
Well, one of the first things that I would do is to launch a committee to update and actually just redo our comprehensive plan. It was done in 1984, and it's been something that sort of like the tax code, right, just gets amended, and finally it sort of doesn't really make sense anymore, right? So what we need is a new comprehensive plan. We're a completely different community than we were in 1984 when the original comprehensive plan was done. And there are lots of different subcomponents of that that we would need to take on. But the question also asked about the top 3 priorities. And so the priorities, of course, would be economic development, crime, and maintaining quality services. Now, education, of course, is a component of that. And I think that there is, however, even though the city of Aurora doesn't have direct control over our educational systems, there is more that we can do. We've done some great things by helping to launch the Strong, Prepared, and Ready for Kindergarten, the SPARK initiative, that's helped to bring an $11 million grant that we wouldn't have gotten if we weren't collaborating with the school districts, with the United Way, and with other entities. And that $11 million grant helped create 400 new all-day preschool slots in District 204, District 131, and 129. That's what collaboration can do. We have the Pathways to Prosperity initiative, and these are 2 initiatives I've been highly involved in. I go to the monthly meetings, and we work together with our school districts in this case, and with some of our other private foundations and other entities. And with Pathways to Prosperity, we're seeing some tremendous progress too. We have a new technical training center that's being built on the west side of Aurora, but is going to be made available to all school districts within Aurora. We're working on ways that we can get greater access for District 204 to be able to get into the nursing school that Waubonsie Community College has right up the street from here, to be able to train kids in high school to be able to get the jobs that we know are available now and jobs that are unlikely to be outsourced in healthcare. in the advanced manufacturing jobs that are coming back, and in information technology, which cuts across all sorts of things. So I would bring an education person into the mayor's office to make sure that we are being good partners. But overall, I believe that the answer to, it's a recurring theme with me, is in collaboration. I think that we need to continue to work with those entities that are out there who have shared goals, who are looking to try to make the Aurora a better place, and we need to be working more collaboratively than we have been. And there are great opportunities to be able to do that, and that would be my priority on day one, is pulling together everybody who has the common goals with us and building a plan that is inclusive and building a plan that is collaborative.
And Alderman Irvin.
Day one, 3 things. Economic Development Commission, reinstate that, talk to the business community about pulling together the commission and creating plans for not just downtown, but economic development plans for each ward. Also, day one, an Education Commission, working with the school districts and interested educators and partnershiping with all the school districts that touch the city of Aurora, and creating a collaborative effort to work together to share resources and share best practices and best ideas throughout the state. Day one, I want to create an internal commission that focuses on improving our internal processes, improving our permits department. I don't know if any of you have ever heard, I know that when businesses come to the city, they oftentimes have run up against issues with our permits department taking too long or putting them through too much to set up business here in Aurora. We've got to streamline that and make it a one-stop shop. Also, we've got to focus on improving our inspections department, making sure that when I say improving, making sure that we have the number of inspectors needed to be out in our communities to ensure that we don't have overcrowding on our east side, which causes a problem with our school districts or takes advantage of our resources, a drain on our resources. Also, the internal commission would work on processes that would streamline how government works and make sure that all the information that we have in the city is available and open access to our citizenry. We've got to make sure our website is user-friendly so you can navigate it and find any information you want, and open access to all the information and all the documents that the city deals with every day. If we immediately implement those plans, Economic Development Commission and working with the businesses to identify what we need to do to grow our revenue streams, Education Commission, which makes sure that we have good education on east side, west side, 204, 308, Canelan. Make sure that when people are moving into the city, they're moving in because we have quality education. And 3, a Internal Processes Commission to make sure we have checks and balances inside the city and make sure our processes are streamlined. That will be I think if we implement that plan within the first 100 days, I think the rest of everything else will kind of fall in place smoothly. And again, I always talk about economic development, crime, and education all in the same breath because they all affect each other. There's no economic development without a popular and sought-after city. Businesses aren't going to come unless we have an educated and prepared workforce. The crime is going to continue to happen unless we get our youth off the street and into effective programs and jobs.
Thank you, gentlemen. That concludes the question and answer portion of this session. Now we'll get to the closing statements. And again, just a reminder, you'll have 2 minutes for your statement. So we will start with Mr. Guzman.
Well, again, Aurora has been undertaking an amazing story. And a couple of the things that I could have talked about, and probably many of the answers, but neglected to do so, are some of the progress that we've been making in actually taking former vacant buildings that were off the tax rolls in many instances and helping to get those back onto the tax rolls. Taking institutional buildings like the former Waubonsie Community College, the former St. Charles Hospital, and being able to find new long-term uses that will help those to be contributing to the community. I've talked a lot about collaboration. Those are 2 examples of projects where I was the lead on the city side, but that the city never could have done, certainly on its own. But we found private developers. We told them the story of Aurora, the transformation that's been taking place. And we said, look, if Aurora went from having a homicide rate that was 4 or 5 times the national average back in the 90s, and 20 years later now, our homicide rate is actually, depending on the year, but if you take the 5-year average, is about 50% lower than the national average. And if you think about that and that trajectory that we've been on, and if we can continue that progress by continuing the practices that have gotten us to this place, then right now is the time to invest in Aurora, because 20 years forward, you may not be able to afford it. But I do believe, and you know what, and we got investors who saw that. David Karadimas was mentioned earlier, and I worked with a couple of private developers to bring these buildings back onto the tax rolls, and they said, you know what, now is the time to invest in Aurora. And I think a lot of this investment is going to come if we can continue to provide the type of foundation that we have built up until this point. And so I'm proud of the 300,000 square feet of properties that were off the tax rolls that we've put back on the tax rolls just in the last year or year moving forward.
Thank you. Alderman Irvin.
You know, I started this out saying that this race for mayor is about leadership. Simple as that, about leadership. Who is going to be the next leader of the city of Aurora? Because we're going to need a leader to bring in economic development and work with bringing more revenue streams into the city. We're going to need a leader that brings together education commission and focuses on bringing the school districts together to collaborate. We're going to need a leader to continually keep a check on crime. Now, you know, when you have a number of individuals to choose from, and all good people, and people that I said that I know love this city, you know, or otherwise, why would we be up here in front of you saying, look at us and please vote for me? You know, this is no easy task running for office. You know, I've been here a time or two. But, you know, I'll do it time and time again because I believe in this city. I'm running for mayor because I know we can be more. We can do more. We can go to the next level. And I believe my leadership will take us there. You know, as I said, I was a leader in the military when I served in combat in the Gulf War. I was a leader in a community-based prosecution unit working with the police to stop crime in the city of Aurora. I've been a leader when I started my own law practice 2 blocks down the street from where I grew up in low-income housing, you know, with employees that work for me and rely on me to pay their mortgages. I've been a leader for the last 10 years on the city council as alderman at large. There's only 2 aldermen at large. One of them's the mayor sitting over there, and and I'm the other one. I've run citywide, and we've dealt and addressed citywide issues. I was a leader when I joined the Fox Valley Credit Union as the chairman and changed its rating from very low bond rating to a very high bond rating and turned that credit union around. This is what we need for the city and for our future, someone to lead us to the future. And I want to be that leader for you. I'd like to be the next mayor of the city of Aurora. It would be my honor to serve you in that position.
And Alderman Seville.
I literally have decades of dedication serving people. I love to serve. That's my avocation. And as my work on the city council has proven, I can get things done. I'm very aggressive in making policy. I'm very aggressive in solving people's problems. I don't look for Band-Aids. I look for long-term solutions. In giving you my background earlier, I also want to say that I have also served as mayor pro tem, so I know what it's like to take on some responsibilities as a leader in our community. In the many successful programs that I've been able to initiate, again, I want you to think about past as prologue, right? Please go to my catchy website name, MikeSevilleForMayor.com. Look at what I've accomplished. It's by year. You're going to have to spend some time on it because there's a lot there, but I urge you to do so to get an understanding of what I'm like and what I would be like as your mayor. I've mentioned to you the crime-free housing ordinance and how that has reduced crime overnight and made landlords more accountable. And I'll give you an example. I had a large apartment building in my ward. I had a call from the Fox Valley Park District Police, actually, because it was across the street, and he told me, Mike, we have a real problem here. So what I did is I asked the police department to do a 3-year call for service. We literally had 999 police calls for service in 3 years' time. I couldn't believe it. So what we did, I gathered staff, I gathered the police department. We asked the landlords to come in. We kind of read them the riot act. We made them to put security on the building, on their site. Last month, I had a meeting with the police department, 2 calls for police service. That's the way I work. Not Band-Aids, but long-term solutions. I love our community. As I mentioned to you, I was born and raised here. There's a lot of positive things going on. Yes, we have challenges. I've never shied away from them. I love working with people. I love serving people. I love solving your issues long-term. And that's all the time I have.
Thank you all very much. Well, on behalf of Alderman Mervine, I first want to thank the community that came out tonight. This is a true testament of the electoral process and the importance of it, especially in this community. So I do want to thank you all for taking time to do that. And with that in mind, it is a very heartfelt reminder that the primary is February 28th, coming up shortly. So make sure all of you in this room that are so wanted to come out today, take that extra 5 minutes and run over to the voting booth.